of parent and child object relationships, and how to prepare the file, and how to send the file to the cloud by preparing the file and saving the file as object name.dat, and zipping the file and sending the file to the Fusion applications, and where we can manually update that file, upload the local file into the Fusion applications. And after that, we have to trigger the import job. And while triggering the import job, we have to pass the parameters accordingly, the number of threads to run while loading the job. And once we trigger the import job, that it will load data into the stage tables. And once it load into the stage tables, the next thing is we have to trigger the load job, where it will load the job into the base tables. So in that process, we have seen what are the logical lines, and what are the physical lines. Physical lines means how many lines we are sending in a file, and logical lines means the number of objects that's being sent in the file. If we have a parent and child relationship, they will be combined together and come under one object. So we have seen that the fundamentals. Now, the very important topic, the keys. Keys means what? How to identify unique record. That record can be, record means what? As we know, we are sending data in the file format. The file, what our file we prepare, it's for the object, right? So how to uniquely identify a local business object component? That can be a parent of a business object component, a child of a business component. What does it mean is, as we know, we can while preparing the file, we can send a single object, or we can send an object and the child of that object, or we can send the multiple objects in a single file. We have seen that. Okay, so how do we uniquely identify every object? That is very important. Okay, so for that, what Oracle has given is, Oracle has given 4 kind of keys. Okay, 4 kind of keys which will help you to uniquely identify the record. If you know the unique identification of the record, then you can at least able to load the data into the system without any issues, because you are satisfying the primary conditions of the respective record or respective line. Okay, so Oracle has given 4 kind of keys through which you can load data into the system. Okay, so it also gives us enough understanding about how data will be inserted into the tables and how data will be stored into the Fusion applications. Okay, so let me start with the first key. So we have 4 keys. One is Oracle Fusion GUID. We call as Oracle Fusion GUID, that is Global Unique Identifier. And second one is source keys. And third one is Oracle Fusion Surrogate ID. And next one is user keys. Okay, let's see what is individual keys and how does it work. The first one is Oracle Fusion GUID, that is Oracle Fusion Global Unique Identifier. It is this is generated when in Oracle Fusion, when any record is created. That record can be any record. You can think of any record in the Fusion applications. Whenever a record is created in the Fusion application, that record can be through record can be manually entering the record into the Fusion applications, or you are sending it through a file, or you are loading it to a spreadsheet loader. From whatever is the source, whenever a record is created in the Fusion applications, a unique key will be generated. Example, I'm loading the jobs. For every job record, a unique key will be created. Okay, and I'm loading a location. Even for location, a unique key will be created. That key is different than what the job has created, because this key should be unique across every object. Okay, so similarly, if you load a user, it will have a key. It will have a GUID created, and that key will be different than what is assigned to the location or the job. Okay, it is unique across all objects, and it is a hexadecimal value, and it will be held in the integration key map table. What is integration key map table? It is HRC underscore integration underscore key underscore map table, and you won't see the table from the front end. Actually, this table is entirely stored in the back end. Okay, and this GUID is primarily a raw data type. Basically, the raw and long raw data types are used for data that is not to be interpreted by Oracle databases. Okay, so if you want that raw data type to view it, then you have to convert that into hexadecimal using the row to hex function. Okay, so let us see about this. So till now we have created many records in the Fusion application, right? We have created manually, we have created the spreadsheet data loader, we have created the templates, we have created through the HCM data loader, right? So let us see, let us take any object that we have created in the Fusion applications. Okay, so let example, yesterday we have created some let's see. So here, yesterday we have created a job. Okay, so we created a job code RB Tech3 job 2. We created this one. Okay, so what I will do, as I said, any record you create, this record or you send a user record, right? Job record or user record, any record you send, you try to load into the Fusion application, a unique key will be created, right? Let us find that unique key. Let us find the unique key for this. Unique key means GUID, unique key for this record and unique key for this record. Okay, whatever record got created. So how do we figure it out? Okay, for that, basically what happens is the first step is to go to the base table of this object or base table of this object. Okay, let us say I want to go to the base table of the user object. So what is the base table of the user object is PR underscore users. So let me go to that table. Let me go to the new data model, and here let me try to query the user table. So I will just use a data set. I'm going to give HCM, and I'm going to give select star from PR underscore users. Let's show. Let us see what is the username. Username without underscore. So let's go and say where username is equal to what we have created here. We created Robert Pipe John, right? So let's go here and Robert Pipe John. Let's get the record of this person. Okay, so here this is a record got created in the Fusion applications in the backend. Okay, so if you see that this record is created by Fusion Apps HCM SOA SPML app ID. Okay, so it is because this created by the HCM data loader. Basically, this HCM SOA I forgot what is the SPML actually. So through this, whenever a record is created through HDL, so basically initially in release 12, we have used to have a different user ID, but now it is got changed. So it got loaded through SOA SPML app ID. Okay, and it's last updated by this one. And it is last updated by 2018-4/19, right? So now how do we get the GUID of this person? Okay, so we have one user GUID here. Let me, okay, one thing I need to clarify, it's not a brand new record. Basically, it's the record, we just updated the record, but we will get that one. And I also want something which is actually brand new. So I'll take it up. So what I will do, I will take the, for this username, and I will just take a copy of it. Okay, and I will also take the user ID. Okay, I'm using this. Similarly, what I will do, I will create one other data set for job. And then I know it is a brand new job, this one at least. It's a brand new job. So let me try to query the job. The table name is PR_jobs. So yeah, we have job name where name is equal to text08 test3. Okay, so let's see the data here. So it is the user ID. Oh, we don't have any tab, any record with jobs. Oh, I'm looking at the, I need to give this one actually, sorry. Because it is the name, right? Name is test08 space test3. Okay, so I'm giving it. So now if you see that, now we have the table now. Okay, so here we don't have a GUID, but we have job ID. Let me take this one. Okay, and if take this name, whatever. Okay, now how do we know the GUID of this record? Okay, typically users table will have user GUID, but any other object don't have GUID basically. So for this job record, what is the GUID? Okay, so how do we get that? How do we get that is, let me create another data set. You can create any number of data sets. Every result will come independently. Example, if you see here, by default, you are seeing the tree view. If it's a table view, every result will come independently like this. Okay, so I'm going to create one more data set. I will create for integration table. Okay, so the table name is, let's take this. Okay, so here what I'm doing, I'm trying to query all the records in the integration key map table. Basically, I'm trying to just, okay, let me do one thing. I will just give some alias name here. So where the GUID. Let me do one thing. Let me try to pull data. What happened where object name is equal to job? What I'm doing here. Oh, the problem is here the code is different. So let me pull the data. So I'm going to table view. So it will pull lot many records because we are not giving any criteria here. We are just pull every record whose object is a job actually. So how do we know the GUID of the record that we created, right? How do we know that? How do we know that record that we created? This is the job we created. How do we know GUID of this record? Okay, we have the job ID. Job ID in the base table is a primary key. This will become the surrogate ID in this key map table. Okay, so what I will do, I will go here and I will say, and surrogate underscore ID is equal to, sorry, this one. Okay, so I will pull the data. Let's see view now. So it means it is the GUID that is created. This is a GUID for the object what I created. And this GUID will be different from any object. Example, as I said, if for user, example, we have a user ID. If we get the, I'm going to give the surrogate ID of that record. I'm going to remove this condition. I'm commenting that. And if you see that, now you can see that. So it is a surrogate ID and
remove surrogate ID so that we can get all
what is it?
can remove surrogate ID, that condition, so that we can get all, can compare.
Let me see whether that it has the object name as a user. So does this integration map table has in the object user? So if it doesn't have, then maybe yeah, it has a user. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because this record was not created something. Uh, 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 this user is not something what we created. It is something got came along with the initial installation of this Fusion applications, because that is coming as it is a demo instance. These usernames came along with the Fusion applications. That is the reason it was not showing up anywhere. But if you see any new user that we created, example, I know some of us has created, example, we have created username with um, username like RB student, something I think Prem was saying yesterday. So if I say RB student, let me see if we have anyone. Yeah, we have some records, RB student 7. So I will take this user ID and I will try to give the surrogate ID as that user ID. You see here, this user, for this user, we have the record here for this user object. So
user ID and GUID is both are different, right? So, but it's specific to a user ID.
yes, it is a user ID. This user ID is getting surrogate ID here. But what I wanted to show, basically my intention here is to show the GUID. It is a GUID.
GUID is specific to a user ID?
No, GUID is specific to an object. Okay, so let me take an example. So let us, I think I have given demonstrated someone. Okay, let me create it. So think of a scenario like this. We have created user 1, user 2, and we have created job 1, job 2. We have created location 1, location 2. Okay, now we have a users table, users table, base table, and we have a base table jobs table, and we have something called HR underscore locations table. These are all the base tables of the respective objects. Okay, now I create the user 1 and user 2. What happens? I get the user ID created and I got the username created. So user ID will be created 1000 and username will be user 1. Similarly, I have another record. User 1. Similarly, I have another record, 1001, and I user 2. Think of like that. Now I got job 1, job 2. Now I have a job ID and job name. So here, when I create a new job, every job table has a unique key, right? So what happens here? I can have job ID as 1000 because job table can have their own key, right? 1000, and job name will be job 1.
Maybe we can put
Sorry?
ID, you can give 100 and 101. I think that's better to avoid confusion.
Okay, so I want to give same user ID.
Fine. Yeah.
That can happen, right? It can happen in any table because every table has their own primary key.
Correct.
So I want to give like that. So location name. So let's say 1000 again, and location name is location 1 and location 2. Okay, now it is like this. That's good. So now what happens with the GUID table? We have the GUID table. What is the GUID table? It is implication key map table. Now what happens for this? It has object and it has GUID and it has the surrogate ID. Now what happens for the user object? This GUID is, here I am going to give ABC01 example because it's hexadecimal, right? And for user, for what, which one it is ABC01? It is for user 1000. And for user object, different GUID is going to create ABC02 for surrogate ID 1001. Similarly, for job object, for 1000 ID, I'm going to have GUID ABC03. Okay, so similarly, for 1001 job ID, my GUID is ABC04. Okay, so similarly, for location object, for 1000, it is ABC05. And for location 1001, it is ABC06. So what I'm trying to say here is GUID is unique across any object, whereas surrogate ID is unique only to that specific object table. Okay, so here for users table, we have the user ID as 1000, username as 1, and for that combination we have a GUID created as ABC01. And for job, whose job ID is 1000 and job name is job1, for that we have that job and this combination surrogate ID, surrogate and nothing but the primary key of that respective object, GUID is ABC03. So GUID is unique across all the objects. That's what I'm saying here. Unique across all the objects, and it is held in the integration key map table.
It's similar to row ID.
Similar to row ID, yes. You can, and that row ID is unique across every object.
Across
basically, the row ID is specific to a table. I don't want to limit like that.
Across system is unique.
Yes, across the system, across any object. You can think of any object, a unique GUID will get created. That is the reason it is given as a raw data type. Raw data type can hold unlimited number of values. So that is the reason it's stored as a raw data type. And okay, a raw data type, and that's what it is. So it is GUID. So now why I'm saying this, if you want to, example, let us say if you want to update this job name to job 2. Object. Okay. My internet connection is showing a little unstable. Can you guys hear me? Let me know if you have any problem.
Now we are able to hear, Lakshmi.
Oh, previously there was a disturbance?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, just now I got a message that internet connection is unstable.
I think across locations.
Sorry?
I think it's across locations.
Right. Okay, so that's the importance of GUID, right? So that is one uniquely identifier record. That's what I wanted to say. Okay, that is the GUID. Okay, now another thing is called Fusion Surrogate ID. Fusion Surrogate ID is also Fusion generated unique ID, but it is unique only for that object type, and it is held against the object definition. Okay, here PR users, it is user object, it is created against this user object. Okay, and it will be stored in the same object table. Okay, and it is unique to that specific object. Okay, and This is called surrogate ID in our terminology. This is called surrogate ID. Okay, and we can store up to 16 digit 16 digit number as a surrogate ID, which will be stored in the individual tables. You won't see a surrogate ID in individual tables. You will see that one as a user ID or a job ID, just like that. Okay, that is the surrogate ID. And this key also won't be visible in the application. We can see it from the backend only. Again, it won't be visible. If you go to the Fusion applications anywhere, you won't see that surrogate ID or GUID from the front end. If you go here and our job is Tech 08. If you go to that object, you in the front end, you won't see that keys. You won't see those IDs. You won't see either GUID or surrogate ID. You won't see anything here. Okay, that is the surrogate ID. Okay, next one is source keys. What are the source keys? Okay, before going to the source keys, so what I will do, I will again open my object definition. Okay, I'm again opening my object definition, and I'm opening a job object where actually job is a parent, and these are all the childs. I'm clicking on the job, and this job. Okay, this is the job where we have all these attributes. We have all these attributes. Okay, now here it will say that for every attribute there's a key type here. It will say what is which key. Job ID is the surrogate ID in this job object. Okay, if you want to know what is the key type of what is the surrogate ID in our table, you can refer to our documentation either through Excel sheet or from front end using initiate data load. You can figure out what is our key type here. Okay, and you can identify the attribute. So if you wanted to update a job name, you can send this attribute. If you know the job ID, you can send this job ID in your file. You can use the job ID in your file to update that record. You can give the job ID here, and you can mention the job ID here, and you can send the data. That is job ID. Okay, so these are all the attributes. And where is GUID? It is called Fusion GUID. Basically, there is a column called GUID. You can mention a column as GUID here. You can mention column as GUID here, and you can also provide the GUID here. You can also provide the GUID here, which will identify that record uniquely, and you can use the GUID to update that record. Okay, you can use the GUID as well. Okay, this is GUID. Okay, that is surrogate ID and GUID. And there are something called source keys. What are the source keys? Okay, what are the source keys here is, because actually source keys is a combination of source owner and source system ID. And why Oracle has defined these keys to uniquely identify the record. The reason for that is Oracle, when we are integrating a system to another or Fusion applications, the cloud system, we have to load data into the Fusion applications. At the time of loading the data into the Fusion applications, do we have a user ID? Do you have the surrogate ID? No, we won't have surrogate ID because it's a brand new. The Fusion application is a brand new. It won't have a surrogate ID to uniquely identify the record, right? You won't be having the user ID to uniquely identify the record at the beginning of while creating a record. If you want to create a job in the Fusion application, if you want to create a user in the Fusion application, you have to send a unique key, a primary key in your file. But at that point of time, as user ID is not available at the point of creation, you cannot send the user ID, right? You cannot do. Similarly, GUID is also not available. GUID will be available only after the creation of it. So you cannot send the surrogate ID or GUID to uniquely identify the record. So Oracle has given a provision of sending a source keys. What they're saying is, you can send a source system owner and source system ID uniquely to an object for any object. Okay, and this combination should be unique in that object. Okay, so let us think of an example. You have an EBS system and you have the Fusion applications, and you want to send the EBS user accounts to the Fusion application, right? So EBS user has users table, and what you wanted to use in the EBS users table, you have the user ID. And what you wanted to say, you wanted to send user ID of the EBS and owner as a, you can tell owner anything. Example, your company name is XX. I will say XX_EBS is my owner, and source system ID I will send as a user ID. So I can send a combination of my owner name and my source system ID together to uniquely identify the record. Provided whatever owner you are sending here, that owner should be configured in the Fusion application in HRC source system owner lookup. Only when you configure that source system owner in this lookup, when you try to send this combination, system will take that combination and identify that this owner is already available in the application, and with the source system ID it will check that, example, user object is the source system ID is sent. So if it is not sent, then it will accept that combination as a unique combination and insert that record in the Fusion applications. So this is again very important thing. And if you see, this source system owner and source system ID combination again will be stored in the key map table. If you see, there is source system ID and source system owner. There are two things here: source system ID and source system owner. These two combinations are again will be stored in the
Hello, Lakshmi. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, Lakshmi.
Yes, Lakshmi.
Oh, I think I lost you. Okay. Give me 1 second. My computer. Okay. Looks like my system is slow today. Yes. Give me 1 second. I'm just checking my router has. Okay. How is my voice now? Is it audible?
Yes, Lakshmi.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So.
Yes, Lakshmi.
Okay. All right. Right. So here, this source system owner is Fusion, and source system ID is something got generated. So if you see this user, or let me get the. We know we have sent job and user, right? So let me bring both. So I have job and user. For this job, we know that we have, this is job, which is this job. We know that we have created this job brand new. We know this one for sure. So here, if you see, here job name, for job object, this is GUID, it is surrogate ID. Source system owner came as Fusion because I haven't sent the source system owner anywhere as a column here. As I haven't mentioned any source system owner, it will feel that owner is a Fusion because We are not bringing data from anywhere. We are trying to generate data from anonymous place. I mean, think it like that. So that is the reason it generated source system owner as Fusion automatically, and it is assigned the source system ID by default. Okay, it is assigned it. But Oracle has given a provision. You can send this combination of source system owner and ID as well as a unique combination. You can send that as a unique combination and create the record as well. Okay. So if you see here, we have the what are the source keys in this? Source system owner and source system ID. So why it was mentioned as 2 stars? If you see here, 2 stars means it is mutually exclusive. If one is supplied, so must the other. That is the reason you have to that is the reason these two are mentioned as 2 stars. So if you see that, if you don't, you don't find anywhere any double star here. You can't find. Okay. So source key is one thing. Now, the last one here, if you see, now I'm opening this one. We have sent this record. I will take it out.
Can we leave blank in that case? Because if one supply, the second one is also mandatory, right?
Yes, mutually inclusive.
Yeah. So in that case, we can leave blank, right? So that it will be considered as a fusion.
If we, because example in this is a record what I have sent yesterday. And when we are sending this record, how we are uniquely identifying this record? We haven't sent source system owner or source system ID in our metadata. We haven't sent it. And it created the source system model and source system ID automatically. Okay, so we didn't do that.
Is the default is a fusion?
Default is fusion. Yes, if you won't give it, then fusion will think it is anonymously we are loading the data. It means we are trying to create the data in the fusion itself. That's why it will think source system model is a fusion. Okay. Now, okay. So again, I'm going. So till now we have learned GUID, surrogate ID, and then source keys. These 3 keys we can uniquely identify the record. If you see in our metadata, we haven't given the GUID, we haven't given the surrogate ID, we haven't given source system model and source system ID, but still this record got loaded. Why? Because this record has user keys. That is the last type of keys, user keys. These user keys are readable, user readable and generated keys. Okay, so what does it mean? If you go back to my file again, in this key we have seen surrogate ID and we have something called user key here. Okay, so in this we have user key, job code is user key, set code is user key, and there are many other user keys are there. Okay, so we have sent, what we did, we have sent user keys in our file. Now, we are seeing job code as user key, set code as user key, job family name as user key, bench code as many user keys are there. Are we sending all the user keys here? We are not sending all the user keys. Okay, but we have sent only some user keys and system accepted it. What are the user keys? How do we know these are the user keys we have to send to uniquely identify the record? Now I'm going to combine everything together. We have something called mandatory column here. Mandatory column, what is? It is yes. So whatever is yes here, to create any record, whatever is yes, that record has to be sent to the Fusion applications. Then the validation, if we won't send, the validation will fail. Okay, let us start with this job ID. We know it is a surrogate ID and it is mandatory. Yes, it is mandatory to create a record in the Fusion application. It is mandatory, right? So think of the system. In our case, we don't have the job ID here, but it is mandatory. That's why star is here. If you see the star, if you go here, star means what? At least one key type is required. Either surrogate ID, source key, Fusion GUID or user key. Any of the keys required in place of this. In place of this, any of the keys required. Okay, so yes, any of the keys required. And what is surrogate ID? This job ID is surrogate ID. What is the source key we know that it is source system owner and source system ID. Every object will have only these two as source keys. And Fusion GUID, yes, we'll have only one Fusion GUID. We have seen it somewhere. Fusion, we have only one Fusion GUID and user key. But there are many user keys. Which user keys are that? That's place we have something called alternative user key attribute for surrogate IDs. For this surrogate ID, what are the alternative user key attributes? Alternative user key attributes are job code and set code. So in place of job ID, you can send job code and set code. So you can send job code and set code in place of this job ID. So I have sent job code and set code in place of the job ID, and I met this condition. I have this condition got satisfied. Number one, that's good. So that's the reason this job I have sent job code as this one and set code as common. So job ID is met. And next thing, this field also mandatory. What is this field? Effective start date. So I have sent effective start date, which is mandatory, and effective end date. It's also it's primary key as well. If you left blank, it will default to the end date of the time. Okay, so if you won't send it,
if you want out. So we need to send both job code and set code.
Yes, because it is saying mandatory, right? This key is mandatory. So job ID is mandatory. If you won't send job ID, you have to send any of these 4 keys. So
Yes,
in our case, we are not sending the surrogate ID and GUID and source key. So we have to send user key. So how do we know which user key is that? Alternative user key attributes, if using job code and set code.
So both we have to send. If we send only job code,
It won't tell up.
Okay.
Because that's a criteria, right? So
Okay.
that's just now if we have solved the puzzle, right?
Yes,
So,
yes.
yeah. So we have to send both. If you won't send any of that, okay. So let us say let's test that. So what I will do, I will create another brand new. So RB test test user key. I will send that. RB test user key job. I'm just saying this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove the set code here. Okay. Same file what we have prepared yesterday. In that file, I'm removing the set code here. Okay. And I'm trying to load this file now. So I'm going to save it. I just saved it. I will be sending it. Test user key version 1. So I'm just going there and I'll be loading this record quickly. This what it will do. Let's see where it will fail. We have 2 processes here, import process and load process. Let us see where this record will fail and what is the error message. Let's go here quickly and import and load data and import local file. And we are going to import that file what we had created. So test user key v1 and submit it. So it's going to say import and load. So I will take only import for now, and then later I will do the load. Okay. So I'm submitting it. Click OK. So let's refresh it. So yeah, it's coming up. So import is in progress. Okay, let's keep refreshing it. It got errored out. See that? Total 1 record and 1 record got failed. Click on the error message. It got failed in the import status itself. It is saying that line component job with instruction merge does not include the value that define a unique reference of the record. Include values for at least one supported key combination.
Yeah, okay, Lakshmi.
Okay, so we have to send that. because it got failed, because Oracle is saying that this is how code is written, so we have to send that, right? So we have to send it. Okay, that is how we sent till yesterday. Okay, we have created, it's exactly the same name, set code, and we created the set code as common. It worked. That is how it is. So yeah,
The error message contains a key, whatever it means or whatever is mandatory. Can it specify? Shall we get the details over there?
whatever is mandatory.
Suppose we sometime, in our earlier example, we removed the set code.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Can we get the details from the error details? Like set code or something got missed.
Or no, I don't think it will mention that. It will mention that the unique reference keys got failed. So how do we uniquely refer that? We have to do that, is something in our hands. So whoever is developing that, they should know that.
Just I wanted to understand the error message, that informative or clear.
Error message will say that you should have at least one of the supported keys. So then you have to go back to the error and will identify whether did you give the unique keys or not. Did you give this combination or not? Any of this. You have to go to the file and verify that how, first of all, you need to understand how you are trying to uniquely identify your file. So then you will have to troubleshoot that. Okay. So in this case, I was trying to send this user keys, job code and set code. Okay, which is the alternative for my job ID basically. So if I use the surrogate ID, then I would have seen job ID in my metadata. If I use source system owners and source system ID, I would have seen columns as source system owner and source system ID. If I use GUID, I should have seen column like GUID. As I'm not seeing the GUID or source system owner, something like that, it means that I'm not using source system owner and source system ID, and I am also not using job ID. It means I'm using the source keys. That is one way if you want to do blindly. If you want to go a proper way, look at your data, look at your specification of the file specification and identify what went wrong. Okay. And it's a primary thing. To create any object, primarily we have to do this one. Okay. Okay, so let's complete reading this, understanding this file, how we got this one. So yes, we got in place of job ID, we have sent these two. In place of effective start date, we have sent effective start date. And effective end date is also primary key. But if you won't send anything, by default, it will default to some end of the time. So you can send it or you can ignore it. You can do both the things. And it's not primary key, it's not mandatory, I'm leaving it. Language is not mandatory and it's a primary key. It means if you won't send primary key, if you won't send this record, by default, you take the base language if you install multiple languages. Okay. Next one, what is this one? Job code. It is yes on create. If you are creating a brand new job, you have to send the job code. If you are not creating a brand new job, what you can do in order to send it? Okay, if you want to update an existing job, you don't need to send this one. Okay, so what is happening here? This column is acting as a user key, and as well as from data perspective, this column is mandatory if you are creating a job. Okay, example, if I am trying to update a job, let us think of like that. Let us say I'm going to create a new record. I'm trying to update some job. Okay, so let us say take some job which is already there in the system. So I'll take some job which is already there. Let us say RB job 4 is already there in the system. And I want to update this job. Maybe I want to send the regular temporary as R, something like that. So I will take this job code. Okay, so I wanted to update this job. Okay, example. Now, to update the job, this job code is not mandatory. Okay, but if you won't send job ID, you should send either job code, set code, or you have to send surrogate ID or GUID. It's your choice. Okay. So what you want to do. Example, let us say in my combination, I'm preparing a brand new. So let me start creating it. Typically you do it programmatically, but for demonstration purpose, I'm doing it manually. Okay. So what I will do, I'm going to start a new, I'm trying to update a job of this record. Okay. So what I need to do, I'm preparing, my requirement is to update job for regular part-time to regular. It is my requirement. Okay. Example I'm saying. So how do we achieve that? Okay. So what I will do, I will start referring this file and I will start looking into it and will identify, okay, to send a record to Fusion applications, what I need to do. I have to send the mandatory columns. So what are the mandatory columns? Job ID. Do you have job ID? Yes. If I have job ID, then what I will do, I will go to the system, and for this job, I will go to the backend and I will go and query for my job ID. So I have this job ID. Okay, I have job ID. So what I will do, I will use job ID. So exactly, it should be the same thing. So meanwhile, I'll prepare the data as well at the bottom. I'll prepare data as Mitch job. Okay, I got job ID. Now, my intention is to update this one primary. Which one is that? This one, regular temporary. It is my intention. I want to update this column primarily. So what I will do, I will, for this job ID, primarily I want to update this one to R, regular. That's my intention basically. So can I send record like this? Does it load successfully? No, because we have to finish off this file first. We send job ID, that is good. And effective start date is mandatory, so you should not skip it. This is very important. So I have to send effective start date, else it will fail. So I will prepare effective start date. So effective start date, I will send as today's date. So 2018. You can send any date. That's not a problem. It's your choice. Okay.
So already effective start date will be there, right, for that job?
It is there.
It will update like this here.
So effective start date is already there, but for HDL to understand, HDL to uniquely identify this record, HDL to load the record into the system, we have to follow the HDL specifications. One of the HDL specifications is to send the effective start date is mandatory. It is saying yes, right?
Okay,
So we
if you
have to follow it.
already taken the job 44, right? So already it's there. And for example, let's say 1 year back he joined this
Yeah.
job. Okay, effective start date. Now,
Yeah.
if you are giving today's date, so it will update today's date. Or?
Yeah, it will update actually. Yeah, if
Okay.
you're talking about HR functionality, it will update it. That's true.
Okay.
Okay. If you talk about technicality, blindly you have to follow this. As it is, yes, I have to send it. Whatever date you give, it's your choice. That's functionality. Okay, so effective start date I have to give, right? Next, effective end date. If left blank, will default to the end of time. Okay, then I won't give anything. I will just leave it blank. The next thing, is it mandatory? No. If loading DFF data, you can give it, or it's not mandatory, you can leave it. And it's also not mandatory, you can leave it. Job code is yes on create. So you are trying to actually what you are doing, if you're creating a job, then you have to give it. But I'm not creating a job, I know that. I'm updating it. So what I will do, I won't give this job code. Similarly, set ID. Set ID, yes on create. If you're creating it, it should be given. But there is again here, yes star. It means if set ID is not given, in place of set ID, we can give combination of any of these three keys. And for set ID, what is the user key set code? So you can give the set code in place of set ID. Okay. And again, set ID is actually foreign surrogate ID. So foreign surrogate ID means this is actually residing in different table. It's nothing but a foreign key basically. So in the job table, you're referring a set ID, it's actually foreign key. Okay, that is why it is called foreign surrogate ID. If you want to give set ID, if you can give set ID, or you have to give the set ID specific surrogate ID or source key or whatever. What is set ID source key? Alternative user key set code. So you can give set code. But again, when should we give that? Only if you're creating a job. If you're not creating a job, you no need to give it. So I won't give it. Okay. And again, job name is yes on create, but we are not creating it. We are updating it. I know that. So I'm not giving it. So is there anything else? Anything else are there? Let's keep going down. There's nothing is there. So it means we satisfied this file specifications. So what I did, I just trying to give, I will just say comment. So
for example, current scenario, we are going to update a record.
We are updating the record. That's a requirement, right?
Yeah. So actually, no. So the columns is mandatory as S and create in our scenario. If you can pass some value, so does it code?
No.
Or does it update?
So what it will do, it will look at the unique keys, primary key. If the primary key is already available, it will update it. If it is not available, it will insert it. We are using merge here.
Yeah, it's okay. But I'm talking about three columns with mandatory property as S and create. Pass those values, any of these three. So will it first of all will it accept?
Yeah, we can come again that question.
Just can you go back to the spreadsheet?
Okay.
Okay, so this in the current column that is mandatory, some of the columns, right? Yes and create, this is the property. I mean, maybe we can consider it as a property. So any of these three, if you can pass any of these values, so will it accept?
Yeah, it will accept. So what we'll do, we'll prepare that file as well. So we'll just save it. And then
what will happen? Does it update?
Yeah, it will update. So we will prepare that file as well. So first of all, let me keep this file aside, and then I will do that. So what we are using here, we are using surrogate ID here. Okay, so I will keep it, and I'm going to update this one now. So what I will do, I will add job code as well. I will add all these keys. So I will add job code, and I will add set code, because these are all the keys, and I will also add source keys. But here, important thing is the source system owner, we have to refer from the table, because it's already updated. It's not brand new. I can give everything here. It won't stop. So we can also give GUID. For now, I won't give GUID. Effective start date, job code. So what I will do, I will first load that file. Once I load this file, that one become the regular. And then I will also try to update the full-time, part-time. So I will use that one as well. I will use this column as well. So what is job code for that? Update job for. And what is set code? Is it common? And what is source system ID and source system owner for job 4? Okay, we need to get this job ID. I9. So source system owner is Fusion. Source system ID is this one. And I'm going to give some full time. I don't remember what is that. I think it is full underscore time. Okay, well, I'm not sure of the value. So what I will do, I will make regular as null. I will just make it as null. I'll just try it. Okay, so I'll just save it, and then I'll create one more. So here what I'm doing, I'm using surrogate source keys version 1. Okay, right. So let's first thing is surrogate ID. This is what we are going to do now. In this surrogate ID, we have just given the in the surrogate ID. Here we have just given the job ID and trying to update the regular template to R. That's what we are doing. Okay, let's load this file first. Again, go back.
While we added some comments, so won't be any problem.
So we have that thing, right? In our, we have one of the syntax is to use the, we can use a comment like that. Comment means it adds a comment to a data file. You can add a comment just like that, like this. So it means it will, Oracle HCM engine will skip that one. Actually, it won't read that.
For only our purpose, sir?
It's only for our purpose, just for readability.
So it will not be going to be inserted anywhere?
No, it won't go anywhere. It's just to read the file for our understanding completely. Okay. Oh, where's our file? I think, sorry.
So no need to do any skip or something.
What's that?
Then if you can give comment or something, the first row, just we added some comment, right? So no need to give any skip comment or something like that.
No need to give like that. When I say one HCM engine reads it as a comment, it automatically skips it.
Okay. So it's an input functionality then.
Yeah, it's a keyword. If keyword is comment means we are skipping it. Okay. Okay, so let's try to load it. Import and load data, and import local file, and browse, and the surrogate ID, that is GPIT, and submit. Let's submit it. So let's refresh it. So let us see what it's going to take. So we followed the HDL engine instructions as per the specifications. So we are hoping it will work. So let's refresh. Yeah, so we have total 1 record. So it's still in progress. So it is imported.
Lakshmi?
Yeah.
Could you please send that file specification Excel sheet?
This Excel sheets? This one?
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, I'll be sending it.
Lakshmi, can we get these details from OER?
Yeah.
Okay, all this spreadsheet and all, right?
Yeah. I mentioned that where to download that spreadsheet from in my documentation. So I have given the doc IDs here. You can download it from going to this doc IDs.
Okay.
This for even it applies for even FSCM as well.
Yes, FSCM, yeah, that template's a little bit different. Basically, it's not this much detailed. You can download from the Fusion application itself. You don't need to go to anywhere. We will discuss about that. So this record is loaded successfully. So now if you go to the work structures and look for that specific job, specific record. So what is that record? 59. 59 is RB job 4. So initially RB job 4 regular temporary is blank. Now we just try to update that with regular now, okay, as of this date. So let's go to that job. So now it got regular now and updated as of 4/90/2018. So here in this demonstration, we have used surrogate ID to update. Okay, and we have prepared another file where we used everything: surrogate ID, source keys, surrogate ID, source keys, and as well as source system owners. Sorry, surrogate ID, so user keys and source system owners. Right? We have prepared another file. So this is the file where we use the job code, set code, user keys, source system owner, source system ID, and also we have used surrogate ID, job ID, just to update regular temporary to back to null. Okay, so let's try to do that. Okay, I'm giving the same date. As of the same date, I was trying to make it null. So let's see how it works. We have prepared that one as well, surrogate and source keys. So let's quickly see that. So if people are able to following, right? Am I too fast or is it confusion?
Following, Lakshmi.
Okay, thanks, buddy. So import and load, submit. Okay, so now we are uploading, we are giving everything to update one record. So not necessary to give everything, but still we have given it. It won't cause any harm. That's what I'm demonstrating for Srinivas' questions. Okay, so it should not cause any problem. If it causes any problem, we will troubleshoot it. So import is successful.
So it doesn't. It does not have a problem if you give more information. It only has
Yes.
a problem if you give less.
That's true, exactly. Absolutely. So yeah, it will successfully load because it is complete here. So that is done. Now that work structure will become, the regular temporary will become null. Okay, right. So let's continue a little more on that. Right. So what typically happens, now we have sent all these keys, right? What typically happens is systematically looks, whenever it see the record, right? Same record, when we sent all these files together, then how do the system read it? What do the system look at the beginning actually? What system will do, will look at the beginning at GUID. Is GUID available in the file? Then it will use GUID to uniquely identify the record. In our file, we haven't sent GUID. Okay, GUID is not sent. Then it will look for surrogate ID. Did you send surrogate ID in our file? Yes, we have sent job ID. That's it. It won't bother about any of the remaining things. It will just ignore it. It won't go later. If surrogate ID is not given, then it looks for source keys. Source key is nothing but source system ID and source system owner. Okay. If these things were given, then it will stop here. Else, it will go for user keys. It is the key resolution sequence actually. So that's the way Fusion uses it. Now,
Lakshmi, can you come again this slide once?
Sorry?
Can you come again this slide once? From GUID.
So if we send all the keys in our file, so in the Excel sheet, we have all these keys, right? So we have all these 4 keys. If we send all the 4 keys in a file, or we have sent some keys in our file. Whenever we send some keys in our file, first of all, it looks for the GUID. Did you send GUID in your file? Then it will use GUID to uniquely identify your record. If GUID is not sent, then it will look for surrogate ID. If surrogate ID is available, then it will make surrogate ID, use surrogate ID to uniquely identify a record. If surrogate ID is not available, then it looks for remaining keys. If surrogate ID is available, example in our case, as surrogate ID is sent, it won't bother about any of these keys. It won't look at that. Our program won't look at those things at all. It will, based on this job ID, it will try to insert or update the record. It won't bother about remaining any of these user keys or source keys to uniquely identify a record. If surrogate ID is not available, it looks for the source keys. If source keys is not available, it looks for user keys at the last. Okay.
But during insert, even if you have surrogate ID, we should have the source case.
During insert, you won't have surrogate ID because surrogate ID will be generated only once you insert the data into the table.
Okay, so in that case, source keys are, the last two columns are mandatory, right?
Exactly. In that case, in the insert case, only source keys and user keys available where you can send the data. That's true. When you do the, I think I demonstrate that when you do the insert, basically you have only the provision to send these two keys, any of these two keys, source keys or user keys. Okay, you don't need to, you won't have these two available actually. I have those things. So when creating an object, you have to send source system keys or user keys. This is one example. Here I am creating a job. Basically, I'm not using any, using source system keys. I'm trying to insert the record here. And using user keys, also we can insert the record here, basically. Okay, so, and while updating the data objects, you can send user keys and source keys, or also you can send Fission GUID as record is already created. To update the object, you can get the GUID from the integration key map table. When getting the GUID, make sure you convert into hexadecimal, raw to hexadecimal functionality to convert the GUID. Because if you just send the raw data, system won't understand. So you have to convert the GUID into raw to hexadecimal. Only then you have to send the hexadecimal value in your file like this. Here, if you see, I'm sending GUID to update the information here. So I'm sending GUID here with the effective start, effective end date, name, and full-time, part-time something. So you have to use GUID. You can use GUID to update the record here because record is already created. And not only GUID, you can also use surrogate ID. To get the surrogate ID, query the base table, select start from PER jobs based on your job name something, and get the surrogate ID and give the surrogate ID like this. Okay.
So we can have source keys duplicate across the table.
We can have source keys. Yeah.
I mean, I can give same source code, source key for multiple columns.
Yeah, multiple objects.
Yeah, multiple objects. Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Multiple rows. I'm saying.
Multiple
rows.
Not multiple rows for the same object.
Uh-huh.
Different objects. You can give the same source.
Maybe job 1, job 2, job 3. I can give the same source code.
You have job 1, job 2, and job 3.
I'm going to be insert.
Okay.
Yeah, in your example, insert example, maybe I'm going to insert 3 jobs, 1, 2, 3. Yeah,
okay.
Same source code, so same source key?
No. If for same object, source key should be different. So in this case, I'm giving the source key.
Yes.
And wanna. Source of wanna.
Just one, yeah.
Okay, so source system owner. In this case, for job, source system owner, let us say you are sending it from EBS. Your company is XX. You are sending EBS. Okay, so you are sending the same job from EBS as well. Okay, so source system owner should be different here. So maybe in my job ID in my company, I'm seeing there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and it should be different. Should not be same because you have to source system ID should be different. Sorry.
I think it's reverse, right?
Yeah, it's reverse. Sorry.
Owner is EBS and key is unique.
Yeah, so think of like this. So yeah, so here basically you have to send for the same object, you have to send like this. And location, you can send XX EBS, you can send location as 1, 2, 3, 4. That's not, it won't stop. Because for location, XX1 ABC 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can send some thing like that. It won't stop. You can do. Okay, only thing where, okay, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 5. Only thing where you can have same source system ID, provided if source is different. if it is, let us say you are sending it from your some ADP example, then you can give the same source system ID. You have the provision. Okay, but this combination should be unique across the same object. Okay. Yeah. I'm not demonstrating these scenarios. Hope you will try it, because if I keep demonstrating, our class will never end. So,
Lakshmi,
yeah.
there's a small problem here, right? There's a small problem here
Mhm.
because you're saying source owner and source ID, right?
Yeah.
So source owner is EBS, source ID is 1234 for job.
Yeah.
But technically, person can also have the same ID in source system, right? So if you're loading a person record, again, source owner will be EBS, source ID will be 1234. You get what I'm saying?
Can you repeat that again?
So you're saying source owner and source ID should be unique combination of that.
Correct. For same object.
Yeah. What is source ID? Source ID is basically primary key for that object in the source system.
No. Source surrogate ID is the primary key.
No, in the source
of the-
system.
Oh, source system, it is a primary key. Absolutely,
Yeah,
yes.
source system.
Yeah.
Technically, my primary key can be same, right? For job and person, it can be the same number, right? Technically.
Yeah, that can be, right? Yeah.
But source system will remain EBS, XX
Correct.
EBS.
Correct.
Source ID will be 1234.
Yes.
And I'll have one more record, person record, source system EBS, source ID 1234. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes. You can have like that.
But then that record will be rejected, right? Because it cannot update because the source
No,
key is...
it will look at the object. It will look for that object. Did we send the unique combination or not?
Oh,
it-
for that object. Correct.
Yes. For same object, did we send the unique combination
Yeah,
or not?
only GUID is unique across. Okay.
Yes.
All
UID
right.
should be unique. Yes,
Okay.
that's a functionality.
Thanks.
Simply-
Lakshmi.
Simply, can we
So
say
typically how we follow systematically, right? I follow. So if it is job ID, I will just say J1234 like that. I will append like this. If
Yes.
location, L1234 like that. If it is employee, E1234. I will mention that first 3 letters are first letter like that, so that by seeing the integration key map table, I can easily locate my source.
That's a
Example,
good practice.
Yeah. If I have issue with my location record, then I could easily look at this ID and easily go to my EBS table, look for this record, and see what data went wrong in the Fusion applications.
Yeah, it's very clear. It's very good. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Right. So, and again, while doing any integrations, the best recommendation is to, at the initial implementation, always use source system owner and source system ID. That is the best recommendation.
Yeah.
Don't go by the user keys. At the initial implementation, to load any data, go by source system owner and source system ID. It will be very clear for you to identify the gaps between the two systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is such a good tool they've given for cloud-based integration. You know,
Yeah.
in this tool, in the SaaS model, it's really
Yeah.
good.
It's very cool, very good tool actually.
Yes. And one more question I had. I think I forgot that question. It's okay. I'll ask
That's
him.
fine. Yeah, sure. Right. So, and referencing the foreign objects. Referencing the foreign objects. So what happens is, example here, I'm creating a department here, organization. In that organization, I have to mention the location, which organization this location belongs to. To send a location, how do we uniquely identify the location? Okay, it means you can refer the foreign key using same thing. You can refer the foreign key using that location code. You can give the location code or location ID or location GUID or location source system ID. You can give again to refer the foreign object itself. You can give any combination of that specific object. In that case, for this department, what is the location? Here I've been giving user key. I can also give GUID. While giving GUID, you have to mention location ID. In the bracket, you have to say GUID. If you're sending source system ID, you have to mention location ID. In the bracket, you have to mention source system ID. So foreign key can be surrogate ID, GUID, and source system ID. If you won't mention any in the bracket, if you won't mention GUID or source system ID, it will think it is a surrogate ID. That is simple location ID. Okay. When we refer that object, you can try loading that. So let
Hello, Lakshmi.
here source system owner I have given as RBEBS. You have to make sure this is configured in the lookup, HRC source system owner lookup. Okay, so when I'm talking about source keys, I have mentioned about this lookup. So make sure this is configured in the lookup. Whatever source keys you are trying to send, that should be configured in the lookup. Okay, let me configure it for you so that your practice may not impact. And again, if you want to create your own source system owner, make sure that is added in this lookup. Okay, so in this lookup, just make sure you keep whatever lookup code, whatever source owner you are trying to send. Oh, I need to go to common lookups actually. Yesterday also I was looking at standard lookups. Basically, it's not right. Basically, standard lookups, you should be able to see everything. But in this instance, somehow we are not seeing that lookup codes. So basically, go to common lookups. You can find it.
We have some lookups available in the spreadsheet. So
yeah,
I think those we can refer, right? So I mean, which
you
field?
can refer to prepare the data. You can refer that. But to configure the source systems owner and source system key actually. So sorry, source system owner to configure the to send the source system owner. Typically, the source system owner should be available in that lookup. Basically, whatever I'm showing.
So this part underscore full system something is the right one lookup. Is it available in the system?
This one you are saying?
Not this one. If you can go back to the spreadsheet, part full time.
Right, yeah, it is available in the system. So if I
yesterday
this one,
we search for this one only.
Yeah, let me. Yeah, it's anyway there. So if I search for the part-time, full-time, you could be able to see that. So yesterday we didn't come to the common lookups. So actually, we are looking at standard lookups. If you search for this one, you could be able to see this one. Yeah, it is there. Part-time, full-time.
I think yesterday we searched for this one only.
Yesterday, yeah, I was not able to go to common lookup screen. It was taking some time.
Oh, okay. So then where we can see that code? Yesterday we have seen that R for the regular.
You can see it if you query for that lookup. You can see that in the code actually.
Okay, so we need to expand this at line level.
Yes, if you wanted to, I mean, typically for regular part-time, regular, and this one actually we won't add anything. Whatever we have here, we'll just refer it.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay. So here, why I came to this lookup is I need to add whatever source I'm thinking of. For example, I'm trying to at the beginning of the implementation, you have to do this actually. So if you want to integrate the data, typically you have to come to this lookup and add your source system owner. Example, my source system owner for Rainbow, because I am trying to convert my Rainbow EBS data into the Fusion application. So typically I will come here and I will add Rainbow EBS. Display sequence can be anything. So start date, I will give you at the beginning of the time, 1951, and end date I'll give any of the time 4712, and I will say meaning is RB EBS system, Rainbow EBS system. Okay, so it is very important. So once you do that, then only whatever you can refer in our whatever you refer in our files. Source system owner, yeah. Whatever you source system owner here. Here I am giving source system owner as RB Tech08. So yeah, if you wanted to make it work, you have to keep this one. So as I configure RB EBS, so I have to make sure RB EBS is available here, and I just need to save it. Then only our program will work. Okay, so okay, save and close. Okay, so yeah, I will. I was planning to cover to load flex fields, images, and documents as well, but time is gone. So I will try to start with these things to next class, and then we do some troubleshooting, and then we look at automations, RFBDI. So I will decide on that. Okay. Okay, so if you have any questions, ask me, else you can drop off, and we can meet on your Monday morning.
Lakshmi?
Yeah.
The Excel files you showed yesterday or today, can you send that so that we can do the practice?
The files you're saying?
Yesterday also you showed you have Excel files and.
Yeah, these are all the files, whatever I have created. I will send it.
Excel files I'm saying.
Oh, Excel files? Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I will send that Excel files. So I have already prepared. So I will send this. Folder to Ravi today. This folder will have the work structures and worker. Work structures is the place actually where you can find all the work structures data that you can send. Okay, and it will also have a PDF guide where you can look at the PDF guide to get help how to load each individual object. If you want to load location, how to load, and if you want to do grade, how to do. It will have for all the work structures how to load. This PDF will have the more information. And also I'm going to send worker data where you can load employee information into the system. It also have the Excel sheet and also this record. And I'm going to use this one as well, loading the user data. Loading the user data, basically users and roles data. So I will keep it in the worker file, worker location as well. Okay. And there are some HCL queries here where actually we are going to look at when we do the troubleshooting. And it is job script, a sample script, how to migrate data from EBS to, how to pull data from EBS in the Fusion understandable format, and a simple PL SQL block. You can use that as well. Okay. And diagnostic and so extracts, basically it's all about troubleshooting. We'll talk about that in next class. Okay, I will send this file today and to Ravi, and I will ask him to share with you all.
And one file you showed today is like for the key, all the sources which you were showing me just now.
That's my PPT. This one?
No. The Excel for the.
Oh, the Excel will have this. It will there in this Excel actually. So whatever I'm saying, right? Work structures, job. If you open this one, it will have the same file. Okay.
Yeah, okay, Lakshmi.
Okay.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Lakshmi.
Yes, Pradeep.
In addition to the HRMS business objects, you can load users and lookup codes, right?
Yes. You can load lookup codes as well.
And any other common objects are available?
I am going to show how to load the flex fields, I'm
Okay,
going to
great.
show, yeah, flex fields like descriptive flex fields, key flex fields, extra information types.
Because in that case, then this tool is not only useful for HCM technical people, it's
No,
also
no.
useful for others.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yes.
We
Okay,
use it for
thanks.
users roles, and for lookups. Actually, the way to load that lookups is a little bit different. It's not like through HDL. We can load it from. We can use it through spreadsheet. Actually, I will try to show that.
Okay, thanks, Lakshmi.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, then.
Hello,
Yeah.
Lakshmi Narayan here.
Yeah, Narayana.
Lakshmi, when you're telling through the notepad, you're updating the which you're going to import. Generally,
Correct.
in real-time scenario, is there any programmatic way we need to update the data?
So it is a kind of sample script basically. So I create a PL SQL procedure through which I'm generating the data in the format that we create the data in that notepad. Same data I'm creating through PL SQL here. Okay. So typically we have to do like this.
So we need to, in the real-time scenarios, we need to.
Yes. We have to create a PL SQL program and generate a file. And once we generate a file, if you go with an automation, that file has to be sent to the Fusion application. And again, if it is automation, you have to kickstart that program externally, that load and import and load program externally, and that job will run. So that's how it happens in real time. We haven't go to automation yet, but we are in the manual process today. So typically, even in the manual process, typically this is how we need to do. Right? Create a procedure using a PL SQL or a Java or .NET in whatever program you're comfortable with, and generate a file here. In this one, I'm generating a sample file here. This file name job.dat at my some file location. I'm giving some file location. I'm generating a file there, and I'm creating writing this data into the file, and creating header and generating the data in that format and writing in the file here and closing the file. I have file ready now. Now what I will do, I need to zip the file and load it manually. If it is manual process, if it is automation, we have to use programmatic way of zipping it and sending it to the Fusion applications.
Okay, Lakshmi, I got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Lakshmi, have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you.
See you on Monday.
Yeah.
Lakshmi, Vishnath
Yeah.
here. I'm
Yes,
having
Vishnath.
few couple of questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to be understand today's session.
Okay.
One thing is, so we have the combination of GUID and then when we are using the merge, no, like when we are passing the as a merge, and if you are using the effective start is a date tracking columns, right?
Correct.
Like if you are passing the effective, if you have the more than one row in the jobs table for the respective job,
Same
like
job.
if I'm passing the future date for the effective date, then which record it will be get update? So it is going to be create a new record, or it is going to be update latest record, or how it will be like?
So you are sending two records.
Only one record. Yeah, only one record, but already two records is exist. Only one record is active, which is the 1st of Jan 2018. But I'm going to be send the data with the today's date.
So you are sending in the file. Are you sending one record or two records?
One record.
Okay. So we already have. So you're talking about HR functionality, right?
Yeah.
So okay, HR functionality. We have a file job starting with 1/1/2018. End time as 12/31/4712, and you are sending a file today as of job start date as 4/19/2018. Once you send the file, what happens is it automatically ended the previous record as of 4/18/2018. Create new record from 4/19 now 2018 onwards with end of the time.
Okay. So can we update the existing end dated record also?
Yes. If you want to update the existing end date record, send a record with that specific record effective start date.
So even we give the effective end date also?
That effective end date should match with what that old record has.
Okay.
If you give that. If you won't give that,
okay,
you have to give the end date actually, else it will think it as. That's a very good question. So it again has some behaviorals actually. So I didn't talk about those things because it's a more job specific, I mean, HR specific things. I have the document. I have mentioned those scenarios in the document actually.
Okay, okay.
Okay,
If
just
possible,
go through it.
share it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go through it and then practice it actually. HDL, especially, we have to do more and more practice.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you
So,
understand the fundamentals, practice is easy actually. Else, it is like hitting in the blind spot. So, yeah. Okay.
next question is okay. So this GUID concept, no, it is applicable for all the modules. It is only
Yeah.
for the header.
Yeah, it's applicable to all the modules.
Okay. So
Yeah.
even it will be going when we are loading through the spreadsheet also. So the
Yeah.
same concept will be applied there.
Yeah. That's why if you remember when I was showing the data exchange, that import and the load, initiate data load, I have shown you some programs are already triggered the backend. So they are actually from the spreadsheet data loader. We go to data exchange in the import and load data, import and load data. So actually we started running the jobs from what actually from since yesterday, I guess we started running the jobs 418, but we have something available of 417. How they came up? They're actually from this template, whatever we created as a spreadsheet template. So typically the spreadsheet internet triggers the HDL engine only. So HDL engine is a core for all the data loading. So yes, they also use the same concept for whatever data you loaded to spreadsheet. If you that day someone is asking the question, how can I see the data from backend actually? So that's actually again go to HRC integration key map table where actually they can get the GUID, source system IDs, and from the base table they can get the surrogate IDs and user keys.
Okay. And this GUID record will be get created for each and every row in any table. Or it will be like a
Any
specific.
table, any object, any table.
Like if you have the header and lines, even for lines also
Yeah.
GUID record will be get created.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I will confirm that to you. But header first should create. Line it should create. If you go by architecture, you should create the lines as well. But I will confirm that when I talk about FPDI.
So in that case, okay, it will be unique reference of entire data.
Whole application, yes. That's why it's a raw data type.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And how who columns will be get effect here?
So who column actually same functionality how it works in the EBS as well. So whenever the record is being touched based on the creation date and the last modified date, but what happens to HDL engine actually happens, right? If you load through HDL, it won't look at from which login you triggered the job. It won't look at this user. So HDL engine has its own user through which you load data. That is the reason if you see that table, I think we have this job ID is created by us. If we create the data, basically, so what is this? This is job ID. This job ID got created. Okay, basically we are not referring the core table basically. So we have to refer the core table for PR jobs is, give me 1 second. Once we use Fusion application, we start forgetting about the table names because we go through analytics all the time, which is all the drag and drop.
Okay.
Basically, we get more comfortable if you go with the Fusion, basically. Yeah. So PR underscore jobs underscore F is a table. So, but I don't really have job name. Yeah. So let me do. So yeah, sector is not updated. So what I will do. So what happens here? This be a publisher, it timeout actually. So I'm again logging in. Just trying to create a. So if you see the last updated bait by Fusion Apps, actually it's not looking at my MPL1, though I triggered the job from my user ID. So the who column, the who updated by is always takes by the this one, whatever got triggered. As I created manually from front end, it created by took this one, but as I triggered the updations through engine, it took the updated by like that. But remaining all these things will be same as the EBS functionality, the object version or creation date or updation date, last update login.
Okay. And so we have seen the comments in the data file, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the comment will be applicable only for the starting line, or we can use anywhere in
Anywhere
the.
actually. Same as commenting our code.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So we can use anywhere with no restrictions for that.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Lakshmi. Thanks for the clarifications.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Bye, Lakshmi.
Bye. Yeah. Hope no one else has any questions. Okay. See you then. Have a good weekend.